Ryan set the paper on the table, voice steady. "I'm the new owner." Catherine looked him up and down. Flannel shirt, jeans stained with motor oil, worn work boots, and laughed. The lawyer flipped to the final page. "Mr. Lawrence Whitmore's signature is here, ma'am." Catherine was still smiling as she reached for the document. But when her fingers touched the signature line, the smile froze. She stared. 5 seconds, 10 seconds, without blinking. Ryan sat still. He didn't know what that signature meant to her, but the paper in her hand was trembling. The conference room at Whitmore & Associates smelled like old wood and lemon polish. Ryan had driven his truck straight from the garage, hadn't even stopped to change. The oil under his fingernails was from a Ford transmission. The kind of work that took 3 hours and paid $80. He'd told Sophie he'd be back by dinner. She was at the neighbor's, doing homework at Mrs. Patterson's kitchen table, same as every Tuesday. Catherine Piermont occupied the chair at the head of the table like she'd bought it. Armani suit, Hermes bag resting against the chair leg, assistant standing 2 steps behind with an iPad. She'd flown in from New York that morning. Ryan knew because the lawyer had mentioned it twice, like it mattered. "Mr. Mitchell," Catherine's voice was the kind that made boardrooms go quiet. "Let me simplify this. I'm offering $9 million for your 51%. That's $500,000 above market value. You sign today, funds transfer Friday. Everyone walks away happy." Ryan looked at the contract she'd slid across the table. The numbers were there, clean and final. $9 million. He thought about Sophie's shoes, the ones with the hole near the toe she didn't mention. He thought about the electric bill he paid late last month. He thought about the trailer they called home, how the heat didn't work right in winter. "What happens to the factory?" he asked. Catherine blinked. People didn't usually ask that. "That's not your concern. You'll have $9 million. It's my concern." Ryan kept his voice level. 340 people work there. What happens to them? "The factory will be restructured." Catherine's tone suggested the conversation should be over. "Standard business practice." "Restructured means shut down." Ryan met her eyes. "And those 340 people lose their jobs." The assistant shifted weight behind Catherine. The lawyer studied his pen. Catherine leaned forward. "Mr. Mitchell, I don't think you understand how business works. This factory loses $40,000 a month. It's unsustainable. Selling to me is the smart choice." "I understand business fine, Miss Piermont." Ryan let the name sit there. Or should I say, Ms. Pierce. Something flickered across Catherine's face. The assistant's eyes widened. "Mr. Whitmore told me about you," Ryan continued, voice quiet. "About the girl from West Virginia who studied at the library because there were no lights at home. He said he was proud of you." Catherine's jaw tightened. "Then why didn't he leave the factory to me?" Ryan didn't answer right away. He thought about Monday mornings, about Lawrence Whitmore's Buick that needed a fuel pump every 6 weeks like clockwork. About how the old man never asked the price, just sat on the garage's plastic chair and talked about weather, about the factory, about life, about how Lawrence had looked at Ryan that first time, recognition passing through his eyes so quick, Ryan thought he'd imagined it. "Maybe because he knew you'd do exactly what you're doing right now," Ryan said. The silence stretched. Catherine's fingers drummed once on the table, then stopped. "You have until Friday," she said finally. "After that, my offer drops to $7 million. And if you think you can run this place yourself, you're delusional." She stood. The assistant gathered the iPad. They left like weather systems, changing the air pressure. The lawyer cleared his throat. "Mr. Mitchell, you should know. I need to see the factory," Ryan said. "Before I decide anything." He drove there in the truck that rattled above 40 miles per hour. Whitmore Manufacturing sat on the east side of Millbrook, a sprawling building that had been making auto parts since 1973. The parking lot held pickup trucks and sedans with rust along the wheel wells. Second shift was starting. Andrew Cooper met him at the entrance. The production manager was 58, had been with Lawrence since the beginning. His handshake was firm, calloused. "I was wondering when you'd show up, Ryan." Ryan stopped. "You know who I am. Lawrence told me 6 years ago." Andrew's smile was sad. Said, "The engineer's back, but don't tell anyone. He needs time." The words hit like cold water. Ryan hadn't used his real name in 12 years. Ryan Caldwell had been an engineer, a good one. Ryan Mitchell was a mechanic who fixed cars and picked his daughter up from school. He knew the whole time. Lawrence knew everything. Andrew gestured toward the building. "Come on, there's something you need to see." They walked through the factory floor. The smell of machine oil and hot metal, the pneumatic hiss of assembly lines, the clang of parts hitting bins. Workers glanced up as they passed. Some nodded. Most just kept working. Andrew led him to a private office and locked the door. Lawrence was murdered. Ryan's hand, reaching for a chair, stopped. The death certificate said heart attack. Because that's what it looked like. Andrew pulled an envelope from his desk drawer. "But Lawrence sent me this 2 weeks before he died." The letter was handwritten, Lawrence's careful script. "Andrew, if you're reading this, I'm probably gone. Watch Brennan. He's been rejecting profitable contracts, inflating costs. I have proof, but I need more time. If something happens to me, make sure Ryan sees this. L." Ryan read it twice. "Philip Brennan, the CFO." Lawrence suspected Brennan was working with Technotron Industries. They want the hybrid compact engine patent. The patent. Ryan hadn't thought about it in years. The design he'd finished 12 years ago, right before Jennifer got sick. The engine that could have changed everything. "If the factory goes bankrupt," Andrew continued, "the patent becomes a liquidation asset. Brennan can buy it cheap through a shell company, sell it to Technotron for $12 million. Andrew opened his laptop, turned it toward Ryan. Email chains, financial records. A message from Brennan to someone at Technotron Industries. Timeline update. Factory will be insolvent by Q2 2024. Asset acquisition proceeds as planned. My fee, 40% as agreed." Ryan's chest tightened. "How long has this been going on?" "Since Marcus died." Marcus Whitmore, Lawrence's son. The accident in 2019 that had shut down production for 2 weeks. Ryan remembered seeing it in the local paper, how Lawrence had aged 10 years overnight. "The equipment that failed was scheduled for replacement," Andrew said quietly. Brennan cut the safety budget 6 months before the accident. The room felt smaller. Ryan thought about Sophie, about how she'd asked him once why he didn't build engines anymore. He'd told her some things were more important than work. But he'd never told her the whole truth, that he'd walked away from everything because watching Jennifer die had taught him that talent meant nothing if you weren't there for the people who needed you. "Where's Brennan now?" Ryan asked. "His office." "But Ryan, you can't just accuse him. He has the board. He has lawyers. You need leverage." Ryan stood. "I know." He thought about Catherine Piermont, sitting in her hotel room, probably planning her next move. He thought about Lawrence, who'd given him 6 years of Monday mornings without asking for anything in return. He thought about 340 workers who didn't know their jobs were being sabotaged by a man they trusted. Ryan pulled out his phone and made a call. "Ms. Piermont, this is Ryan Mitchell. I need your help." The diner was the kind of place Catherine probably never visited. Vinyl booths, laminate tables, coffee that came in thick ceramic mugs. She arrived 20 minutes after Ryan, wearing a blazer instead of a suit, trying to blend in. It didn't work. She slid into the booth across from him. "This better be worth my time." Ryan pushed a USB drive across the table. "Philip Brennan is sabotaging the factory, planning to steal my patent and sell it to Technotron for $12 million. Catherine picked up the drive like it might be a trap. "You have proof?" "Andrew Cooper gave me everything. Emails, financial records, Enough to put Brennan in prison. She pulled out her laptop, inserted the drive. Ryan watched her face as she read. The slight narrowing of eyes, the tension in her jaw. When she looked up, her expression had changed. This is securities fraud, wire fraud. If this goes public, he'll disappear, Ryan finished, unless we move first. Why would I help you? But her voice lacked conviction. If the factory goes bankrupt, I still get the land. Ryan thought about what Lawrence had told him, those Monday mornings when the old man talked about more than carburetors and weather, about a scholarship fund he'd set up 30 years ago, about a girl who'd studied under streetlights. Because Lawrence trusted you, Ryan said, even after you forgot him. Catherine's hands were very still on the laptop. I didn't forget, I just wanted to forget where I came from. Then this is your chance to remember. The silence between them felt different than the one in the lawyer's office. This one had weight, possibility. What's your plan? Catherine asked finally. Board meeting, Thursday morning. We confront Brennan with the evidence, force a vote to remove him. He'll deny everything. Not if we have witnesses. Ryan pulled out his phone, showed her the email he'd sent an hour ago. I contacted the FBI. They're interested. Catherine studied him. Ryan could see her reassessing, recalculating. You're not just a mechanic, are you? I was an engineer, designed that patent Brennan's trying to steal. Ryan met her eyes. Left when my wife got sick. Changed my name to hers after she died. Started over. Why? Because being good at something doesn't matter if you're not there for the people who need you. He thought about Sophie, waiting at Mrs. Patterson's. I learned that the hard way. Catherine closed the laptop. I'll buy 20% of the minority shares. Give us enough combined control to force Brennan out. But I want something in return. What? Partnership. Real partnership. You keep 51%. I get 20%. We split operational control 50-50. She leaned forward. I'll invest $4.2 million in new equipment. We'll modernize, find new contracts, commercialize that patent. But you work with me. No selling out, no walking away. Ryan thought about the offer she'd made that morning. $9 million. Enough to change Sophie's life forever. But this was different. This was complicated, risky, uncertain. And the workers? He asked. Not one person gets laid off. You have my word. He looked at her, this woman who'd built an empire on buying and selling companies. Who'd changed her name to forget where she came from. Who was offering to invest millions in a failing factory because an old man had believed in her 30 years ago. Okay, Ryan said. Partners. Thursday morning arrived cold and gray. The board meeting room at Whitmore Manufacturing was smaller than the lawyer's office, more worn. 5 board members, all minority shareholders. Andrew Cooper. Philip Brennan at the head of the table, confident. Ryan and Catherine walked in together. Brennan's smile was professional ice. Mr. Mitchell, Ms. Piermont, I wasn't aware you'd be joining us. I own 51%, Ryan said. I'm joining every meeting from now on. He took a seat. Catherine sat beside him, opening her laptop with deliberate care. Brennan cleared his throat. Gentlemen, we're here to discuss the factory's financial situation. As CFO, I recommend filing Chapter 11 bankruptcy within 30 days. I'd like to discuss the Anderson Auto contract first, Ryan interrupted. The one you rejected last year. Brennan's expression didn't change. The margins were insufficient. According to this analysis, it would have generated $680,000 in profit over 2 years. Ryan connected his laptop to the projector. Spreadsheets filled the screen. Why did you call it unprofitable? Projections can be misleading, Mr. Mitchell. I don't expect you to understand the complexities. What about the Midwest Supply contract? Detroit Motors? 6 profitable contracts rejected in 18 months. Ryan advanced the slides. All of them would have kept us solvent. Board members were leaning forward now. Brennan's jaw tightened. Mr. Mitchell, I've been CFO for 18 years. I don't need. Catherine stood. Then explain these emails. The screen changed. Message after message. Brennan's name in the sender field. Conversations with Technotron Industries. Timelines. Payment schedules. The 40% fee. The room went silent. Brennan stood slowly. This is fabricated. Where did you... From your company account, Andrew said from the back of the room. You forgot to delete the backup server. I want a forensic audit, one of the board members said. Now. Seconded, said another. Brennan's face was rigid. You have no authority. I have 51%, Ryan said quietly. And as majority owner, I'm terminating your employment, effective immediately. You can't do this. I'll sue. The door opened. Two men in FBI jackets walked in. Philip Brennan, the first one said. We have questions about wire fraud, securities fraud, and conspiracy. You have the right to remain silent. Ryan watched them lead Brennan out. The CFO's face had gone pale, his protests fading down the hallway. When the door closed, the board members erupted in questions. Catherine raised a hand. The room quieted. I'm Catherine Pierce Piermont, Piermont Capital Group. As of this morning, I own 20% of minority shares. She looked at Ryan. Mr. Mitchell and I are proposing a partnership. He retains 51%. I invest $4.2 million in modernization. We split operational control. No layoffs. Questions? There were many questions. Ryan and Catherine answered them, tag-teaming like they'd planned it, which they hadn't. But somewhere in the back and forth, Ryan realized they were good at this. Different strengths. Same goal. By noon, the board had voted unanimously to approve the partnership. By evening, Ryan was driving home to tell Sophie. She was at the kitchen table when he walked in, coloring a picture of a factory. Mrs. Patterson must have told her where he'd been. Did you save it, Dad? Ryan sat down across from her. We're trying, with some help. From the rich lady? Yeah. Miss Catherine. Sophie added a blue streak to the sky in her picture. Is she nice? She's learning to be. Ryan smiled. Like all of us. Sophie put down her crayon, looked at him with eyes that were too old for 9 years. Mr. Whitmore left you the factory because he knew you'd do the right thing. Even if it was hard. Ryan's throat tightened. How do you know that? Because you always do the right thing, even when it's hard. She went back to coloring. That's what makes you a good dad. He pulled her into a hug, this kid who'd lost her mother, but somehow still believed the world could be kind, who trusted him to make choices that mattered, who was his moral compass when his own was spinning. I love you, kiddo. Love you too, Dad. She pulled back, grinned. Can we have mac and cheese for dinner? Yeah, we can have mac and cheese. 9 months passed like pages turning. The new equipment arrived in February. By March, they'd signed 3 contracts with EV manufacturers who wanted Ryan's hybrid engine design. By June, the factory was profitable for the first time in 5 years. Ryan learned to split his time between the shop floor and the management office. Catherine taught him about contracts, negotiations, market positioning. He taught her about production timelines, quality control, the names of every worker on the floor. They fought sometimes. Catherine wanted to move faster, expand aggressively. Ryan wanted to make sure they didn't sacrifice people for profit. But they always found middle ground, usually over coffee in Lawrence's old office, which they'd turned into a shared workspace. On a Friday in September, Ryan stood on the factory floor watching the new assembly line run its first test. 390 workers now, 50 more than when he'd started. Rachel Bennett had been promoted to shift supervisor. Brandon Hayes was training new hires. Jessica Turner's wife had been cancer-free for 6 months. Catherine walked up beside him, carrying 2 coffee cups. She handed him one. Ford just confirmed, she said. $50 million over 3 years. Ryan took a sip. That's the fourth major contract this quarter. Turns out people like doing business with companies that treat workers well. Catherine smiled. A real one. Lawrence knew that. Yeah, he did. They stood in comfortable silence, watching the machinery turn, the workers moving with practiced efficiency. On the wall behind them hung a new sign, Whitmore Manufacturing. 50 years strong. You know, Catherine said, I could have made $23 million on this place. I know. Any regrets? Catherine looked out at the factory floor, at Rachel laughing with a coworker, at Brandon operating the new equipment with confidence, at Andrew Cooper checking quality specs, same as he'd done for 35 years. Not one. Her phone buzzed. She glanced at it. Showed Ryan the screen, an invitation to Sophie's school science fair. She invited you. Said, I'm basically family now. Catherine's voice was softer than Ryan had ever heard it. Her words, Are you going? I'd like to. She paused. If that's okay. Ryan thought about Lawrence, about Monday mornings and butterscotch candies, and an old man who'd trusted him with more than a factory, who'd trusted him with a second chance, who'd somehow known that the right people, given the right circumstances, could choose each other. Yeah, he said. It's okay. Sophie's science fair was in the elementary school gymnasium, projects on folding tables, parents crowding the aisles. Sophie had built a model hybrid engine, complete with pistons and a hand crank. The placard read, Designed by my dad when he was an engineer. He's still an engineer. He just fixes different things now. Catherine stood beside Ryan, studying the model with genuine interest. She's got your precision, and her mother's creativity. Ryan adjusted the sign slightly. Jenny would have loved this. Tell me about her. So he did. About meeting Jennifer in college. About how she'd believed in his designs when no one else did. About the cancer that came fast and mean. About changing his name to hers because it felt like keeping her close. Catherine listened without interrupting. When he finished, she said, Lawrence set up my scholarship the year after his wife died. I didn't know that until recently. I think he understood what it meant to lose someone and still have to keep moving. Is that why he left you nothing? Ryan asked gently. Because he knew you'd already moved on? Maybe. Or maybe he knew I needed to find my own way back. She looked at Sophie's project. Took me long enough. The judges announced winners. Sophie got second place, came running over with a red ribbon, face bright. Dad, did you see? Did you see? I saw, kiddo. You did great. Sophie turned to Catherine. Did you like it? It's brilliant, Catherine said. Best engineering model here. Dad helped with the measurements, but the idea was mine. Sophie held up the ribbon. We're going to hang this in the factory office. Right, Dad? Right next to the contracts. They walked out together, three people who'd chosen each other in ways none of them had expected. The parking lot was full of families loading into cars, kids comparing ribbons and certificates. Ordinary Friday evening in a small Ohio town. Ryan's truck sat between Catherine's rental sedan and a minivan with a stick-figure family on the back window. He unlocked it, helped Sophie climb in. I'll see you Monday, Catherine said. Board meeting at 9. I'll bring the coffee, she smiled. The good kind this time. Ryan watched her drive away. This woman who'd almost destroyed everything and ended up helping save it instead. Who'd learned to sign her name with both parts of her history. Who looked at Sophie like maybe she understood what it meant to be family. Dad? Sophie's voice came from the truck. Do you think Mr. Whitmore would be happy? About the factory? Ryan thought about Monday mornings. About an old man who'd never asked questions, just handed over car keys, and trusted. About butterscotch candies, and quiet conversations, and a gift that had come with no conditions, except to do the right thing. Yeah, he said, climbing into the driver's seat. I think he'd be happy. They drove home through streets Ryan had known his whole life, past the diner where he'd met Catherine that first time, past Whitmore Manufacturing, lights still on for third shift. Past the library where Sophie did homework on days when he worked late. The trailer park looked the same as always, but it didn't feel the same. Not worse, not better. Just different. Like maybe it was a place they were passing through instead of a place they were stuck. Inside, Sophie hung her ribbon on the fridge with a magnet shaped like Ohio. She opened her homework folder, started on math problems without being asked. Ryan made mac and cheese. The good kind, with real cheese sauce. They ate at the small table, Sophie talking about the science fair, about how one kid's volcano had actually exploded, about how her friend Mia wanted to visit the factory sometime. After dinner, Sophie did the dishes without being asked. Another new thing. Ryan dried them, putting plates in the cabinet that didn't quite close right. Dad? Sophie was quiet for a moment. Are we going to move? Do you want to? She thought about it, serious in the way that always made Ryan's chest ache. I like Mrs. Patterson, and my school, and the factory's close to here. Then we're not moving, even though we could afford it now. Ryan set down the dish towel. Having money doesn't mean we have to change everything. Just means we have choices. Good choices. I hope so. Sophie nodded, satisfied. She finished the last dish, dried her hands, and went to get ready for bed. Ryan stood in the kitchen, looking at the red ribbon on the fridge. At the photo of Jennifer, he kept on the narrow shelf. At the factory worker ID badge he'd gotten 3 weeks ago, his real name finally printed on it. Ryan Mitchell Caldwell, COO. His phone buzzed. A text from Catherine. Found something in Lawrence's desk. You should see this, he called her. What is it? A letter, addressed to both of us, dated 2 weeks before he died. Can you read it? There was rustling, then Catherine's voice, softer than usual. Dear Ryan and Catherine, if you're reading this together, it means my plan worked. Ryan, you were always more than an engineer. You were a man who understood that talent means nothing without character. Catherine, you were always more than a scholarship student. You were a girl who understood that survival sometimes requires forgetting, even when it hurts. I left you the factory because you both needed to remember something. Ryan needed to remember that hiding your gifts doesn't protect you from pain. Catherine needed to remember that success without connection is just expensive loneliness. You'll fight. You'll disagree. That's good. The best partnerships are built on different strengths moving toward the same purpose. Take care of my people. Take care of each other. And Ryan, there are butterscotch candies in the bottom drawer for Sophie. I bought them the day I signed the will. Thank you for fixing my car. Thank you for becoming who you were always meant to be. Lawrence. Ryan stood very still. Sophie appeared in the hallway, ready for bed. Who's on the phone? Miss Catherine. Tell her I said hi. Sophie says hi, Ryan told Catherine. Tell her I'll see her next week. I'm coming to her class to talk about engineering careers. Ryan raised his eyebrows. You are? Her teacher asked. I said yes. Is that okay? Yeah, Ryan said, watching Sophie brush her teeth. It's okay. After they hung up, Ryan tucked Sophie in. She was already half asleep, ribbon from the science fair clutched in one hand. Dad? Yeah, kiddo. I'm glad you didn't sell the factory. Me too. Even though we could be rich. Ryan thought about 390 workers, about Andrew Cooper, who'd kept Lawrence's secrets, about Catherine Pierce Piermont, who was learning to sign her whole name, about a letter written by a man who'd understood that some gifts only make sense after you've already accepted them. We are rich, he said, just not the way you're thinking. Sophie smiled, already drifting. I know. Ryan turned off the light, left the door cracked open the way she liked. In the kitchen, he made coffee, even though it was late, sat at the table with Lawrence's letter that Catherine had promised to bring Monday. Outside, Millbrook was settling into Friday night, quiet. Dogs barking, cars passing, someone's TV loud through thin walls. The ordinary sounds of ordinary lives, doing extraordinary things just by showing up and trying. Ryan thought about Monday, about the board meeting at 9, about Catherine bringing good coffee, about the Ford contract that would add 30 more jobs, about Sophie's class presentation, where a billionaire CEO would talk to fourth graders about why engineering mattered. He thought about how Lawrence had planned this, piece by piece, not forcing anything, just putting the right people in the right place and trusting them to figure it out. His phone lit up with a new message. Catherine again. The butterscotch candies are still fresh. He must have replaced them regularly, for years. Ryan smiled. Of course Lawrence had. Some people built their legacies in quarterly reports. Lawrence had built his in Monday mornings and candy dishes, and trusting broken people to fix themselves by fixing something bigger. "Bring them Monday," Ryan texted back. "We'll put them in the office, for anyone who needs one." 3 dots appeared. Then, perfect. Ryan finished his coffee, rinsed the cup, turned off the lights. The trailer was small and worn and exactly right for now. Someday, maybe they'd move, get a house with a yard, room for Sophie to grow. But tonight, this was enough. In her room, Sophie was fully asleep, the ribbon fallen from her hand onto the pillow. Ryan picked it up, set it on her nightstand, where she could see it when she woke. Second place. Not bad for a kid whose dad had almost sold her future for $9 million. Not bad at all. He stood in the doorway, watching her breathe. This child who'd become his compass when his own had been spinning, who trusted him to make the hard choices, who believed the world could be kind because he'd tried his best to make it that way. "Thank you," Ryan whispered, though he wasn't sure if he was talking to Sophie, or Jennifer, or Lawrence, or all of them at once. The only answer was Sophie's steady breathing, and the hum of the refrigerator, and the distant sound of a train passing through town, carrying freight to somewhere else, while Ryan stood exactly where he needed to be. Monday would come with its meetings, and contracts and complications. Catherine would bring coffee and butterscotch candies, and stories about Lawrence that Ryan had never heard. They'd disagree about expansion timelines, and argue about profit margins, and somehow find solutions that honored both their perspectives. The factory would keep running, the workers would keep building, Sophie would keep growing, and Ryan would keep being the man Lawrence had trusted him to be. Not perfect, not heroic, just present, and trying and choosing to do the right thing, even when it was hard, especially when it was hard. Because that's what Lawrence had understood all along. The signature that mattered wasn't the one on a legal document. It was the one you wrote with your life, in the small choices nobody saw, and the big ones that changed everything. Ryan closed Sophie's door gently and went to bed, knowing that tomorrow would bring its own challenges, its own choices, its own chances to live up to the trust an old man had placed in a mechanic's hands. And knowing that he'd try his best, that was enough. It had always been enough.